Hey, you guys, it's Friday night, so that means another episode of the Asea 5. I'm Dr. Maureen Hayes coming to you from Galveston, Texas. And you wanted us to kind of pretend like nobody had ever heard of us before, right, Jim? So,
Yes.
y'all,
Yes.
my background is I'm an anesthesiologist and pain specialist, but for the last decade, I have been a redox educator, teaching people about this breakthrough technology that we're going to be talking about tonight. It's a biohack to increase the redox signaling molecules in your body, 100% non-toxic. We're just replacing what you lose some of as you get older. So we're not here to diagnose, treat, prevent, cure anything. We're just going to help your body do its job better. And your body is miraculous. And when you give it the tools it needs, miraculous things happen. You're going to hear some stories about that tonight. I'm joined tonight by Jim and Ann Glenn from San Antonio, Texas. Yeah. Jim is our big money man, long history in the finance field. And he will maybe, if we have a little bit of time, talk about why this is a fantastic way to make to make money. It sounds terrible when I say it like that. And Ann is our beautiful nutritionist and personal trainer, and she can talk a little bit about that. And we also have Dr. Lee Osler. For those of you who aren't aware, he is a dentist extraordinaire from Washington State, also the author of 3 books that we highly recommend to everybody: Redox Matters, Healthy Matters. Redox Matters connects the dots between the science so that it does a deep dive and kind of explains redox biochemistry and biology. Healthy Matters talks about implementing that into a healthy lifestyle. And then his 3rd book, which has just come out recently, is Why It Matters, and talks about why it's so important for you to share this and for you to build a residual income, which will, serve you right now and for the rest of your life, because we're talking residual income. And tonight we have a very special guest. He's a fan favorite. People love to hear him talk. He's got a wealth of knowledge. He's still practicing, although you've changed your practice just a little bit, Dr. Michael, and we'll talk some about that. Dr. Rich Michael from North Carolina, extensive education, Chapel Hill, Duke, very premier schools. Family practice for many, many years, has now morphed into more of a concierge or a VIP practice where he can really help people make that transition to optimal health and work with people who really want to get rid of root causes of disease and take it to the next level. So Dr. Rich, we love hearing from you. Please come on and give us a little bit more of your background. Tell us, if you will, how you were introduced to redox and what it's meant for you in your practice. So thank you. Take it away.
Okay. Well, Maureen, thanks so much for that intro. And, it is a pleasure to be with everybody tonight. We have so many people right now. There's about 165 people on this call. And I'm sure, there's a big audience. And I go around giving lectures actually to doctor groups and other groups. And I always try to find out the nature of the audience. Well, there's no way for me to find that out with these many people on this format, but, I'll speak to several groups tonight, I'm sure. And, honestly, Maureen, this is a love story. Shock. For some of y'all, you may need to tone it down a little bit. We'll keep it G-rated, but this is a love story tonight. And that's how I'd like to promote this, is a love story. And basically 3 groups. Yeah, there's a group of you on this call that probably you barely know about Asea. You've known it. Maybe somebody invited you to this call. Believe me, that's a precious thing. In this world nowadays, when you have somebody that cares for you deeply, you don't ever want to lose that one person. So that was special that you were invited. So pay attention tonight and get back with that person. For those of you that are Asea associates, I hope to encourage you tonight. I hope to stoke your fire, to renew your vigor, to share this, because, folks, this is quite a love story. In my personal opinion, we just got through the greatest love story that I think the world has ever known or ever will know. And that was the story of Jesus of Nazareth and his life, death, burial, resurrection. But this isn't quite in the same category, but it's not a bad love story. And finally, share some words of encouragement to everybody from a doc who still practices medicine. And as Maureen said, I've morphed to kind of more time with the patient so we can talk about lifestyle, we can talk about diet, we can talk about things that honestly, even if you're doing redox now, you need to listen up because this is a lifestyle and we can enhance even what Asea is doing for us by complementing that with our lifestyle. So basically,
Hey, real
okay.
quick.
Yes.
Hey, Rich, real quick. Go ahead. Maybe you were already going to do that, but explain the practice you had and then why you made the transition to what you're doing. Because I think, Maureen, you're even looking to do, something similar to that. And I'm curious, as well, why you didn't. But Rich, why?
Sure. As Maureen will attest to, the life of most docs is very, very busy. It's ultra fast, bam, bam. In family medicine, didn't do OB, but other than that, did the whole gamut. And, you're seeing 24, 25 a day. The business model now has changed. It used to be, Marcus Welby, laid back, had plenty of time to talk to you, ask about your family. We could go into all sorts of things, the nooks and crannies of life, and spend time with you. And that was precious. That business model has changed. You wait longer to see your doctor than you actually do in the room with your doctor. So I've been busy doing that, started a faith-based practice right out of residency, 1983. So things changed over the years. Successful practice, but almost too successful, right? 14-hour days, 6 days a week, before church, after church, had to do paperwork. I was burnt out. We will talk about oxidative stress. Believe me, there was oxidative stress to the yin yang, and it was on the far end of the spectrum. It was definitely not healthy. And so I knew I was getting near the end of my career. Do I just retire and hang it up? I didn't feel like my ministry in my community was over. I've been in this one community since 83. Okay, very unusual ministry here. There was a opportunity to do concierge medicine. There are many models. This is the MD VIP one. It stands, it's not a very important person. It stands for value in prevention. Okay. Yeah. Value in prevention. And the concept is, if I hear a ticking noise in that corner and you're sitting in this room, and eventually you're going to say, hey, do you think you should check that out? It could be a bomb over there. Maybe we should get out of this place. If we diffuse the bomb before it goes off, that's great. Even the business model where it's insurance is involved, it lets the bomb blow up. It doesn't want to detect it beforehand. It won't pay generally to detect things beforehand. And so, we're left with picking up the pieces. So in this model that I'm doing now, we have time. You wait 5 minutes to see me, you spend at least 30. In fact, I had a debrief today with a patient when you do the executive model exam. It's a 90-minute debrief. And believe it, we needed the 90 minutes on this case today because there were a number of issues going on that we are able to address before the bomb goes off. So rewarding for me, back in those 14-hour days, I was trained well to write prescriptions. I knew pharmacology, you have to stay up with that. It's a wealth of information. Then, thank goodness, we have computers now that help us with drug-drug interactions, all sorts of things, okay? You have to know what you're doing. These are poisons that we're using, And so you have to know that. And that part, I still have that hand. But now I have more time with you. And we have time to talk about lifestyle intervention. Quite honestly, probably 80% of our bad health is because of lifestyle choices. Yeah. It's not genetics driven. It's mainly our lifestyle driven. So when we have more time to talk about that, talk about rewarding for me as a practitioner, that is ultimately rewarding when I can help you through that. So in that previous volume-based model, Jim, no time to look at supplements. I mean, no time, right? I had lots of people asking me, look at this, look at that. No time. I wasn't smoke screening them. I had no time. But then life happens, life happens to us.
Quick question though.
Yeah.
If you went into practice in 83, you must have been like Doogie Howser, because I'm sitting here doing the math. I didn't even graduate medical school till 89. And I think you and I are the same age. You look very, very young. But, I remember when I was in medical school, we took a year of pharmacology, just like the pharmacy students, but I had 1 day of nutrition. And
Yeah.
my patients would say, what do I need to eat? It'd be like, eat the rainbow. I mean, we did stop laughing at it's terrible. So, what are you, did you go back? Did you get some more formal training in that, or, just learn along the way, or how are you?
Well, sure. A lot of it's that. And I have to tip my hat and several hats to our esteemed colleague, Dr. Osler, because in this practice, I actually look at gums. I look at teeth.
Wow.
I get on people if they're not, let's do the easy things, folks. So, I don't know about everybody on this call. I like the easy button. When you can press the easy button, that's wonderful. And I tell you, flossing, excellent gum care is like hitting the easy button for inflammation in our bodies. It's just, and again, Maureen, in medical school, how much time did we look in the mouth? We look past the teeth and the gums to get to the stuff in the back, right? And we overlooked this incredible part of our bodies that's just this window, and it involves our heart health, involves just so much of what we do. So yeah, medical school back then, definitely different, no question about it. But supplements were like just off my radar screen. I just didn't do them. And but life happens to all of us, and life happened to me in the form of one of my grandkids. Now I have 14 grandkids now. I'm not asking if they're through, but this one family that's so dear and so forth, 11. But at the time, Gideon was 13 years old. And it happened 2 days after Christmas. We had just seen them for Christmas holiday. And I got this call from my daughter. I'm getting ready to see my first patient in the morning, and I'll never forget it. And she said 2 or 3 sentences. And again, as physicians, we understand this. We're trained to listen and be able to pick up key elements. And it may seem like it was very fast, but in 3 sentences, I told her, honey, get him in the car. Do not wait for the rescue squad to come. Get him in the car. I knew the pediatric emergency room where they are is about 20 minutes away. It would take the rescue squad longer than that to even find their house. And I said, he needs immediate care. Long story short, he goes there, he's transferred within 2 to 3 hours of their initial workup, and he's transferred to my alma mater, Duke. Now, folks on this call, you never want to be the star patient at a university medical center. Never want to be that person, but he was. And for 5 weeks, he was there. And he coded twice, I believe. And he went to the pediatric intensive care unit a couple times. Very, very difficult situation. He's age 13. The best way for me to describe it is this. I would go up on the weekends. I participated in weekend rounds with the rounding team. I was asked to be included. He would face plant. You had to walk him to the bathroom. He would have face planted. He could not swallow. He was incapable of swallowing. He would have aspirated. He ended up, when he left Duke, he had a peg tube. It's a feeding tube. And then thirdly, he had an inability to talk. He could understand, but he could not talk. So this was I mean, to say a 13-year-old kid had a neurologic challenge, yeah, he had a neurologic challenge. And, there's a lot of dichotomy in the medical field, people that believe this, people that believe that. The dichotomy here is that traditional medicine, which Duke is very traditional, they're excellent at what they do. They just didn't come up with a diagnosis. I will tell you, as I sit here, I think it was one of those things that's a small thing that's carried by a small critter that crawls around on your skin, and you get it in the springtime, and it just crawls and it latches on and it sucks your blood. But while it's doing that, it passes on whatever critters and things it carries, microbes. So it attacked his brain in a very significant way. So when he left basically to a rehab center. He went there for 2 weeks and then he went home. And talk about big adjustments for a family. They had to decide what part of the house is he going to live in. We have to decide how he gets around. I mean, big decisions. And as hard as Duke tried, I mean, they had no traditional therapeutic options for him. Now, it's one thing as a doctor to say, well, come back to this clinic. Your research will find a way maybe in the future. But as a grandfather, how do you think I felt? And, being a doctor, that was tough. I felt very impotent. I couldn't help my grandkid. So his mom and dad did what any mom and dad would do, and that was spend thousands of dollars on non-traditional therapies, because again, traditional therapies had nothing, to offer. So they're going through their bank account pretty fast, and they're going through their emotional bank account even faster. And at that point, they were about spent in both areas. They reached out on social media to just ask for prayer, for their kid. And I'll tell you, remember I said this is a love story? Well, I'll tell you, I'll weave this in now. So what happened is he got a hold of this stuff we call redox signaling molecules, this made by this company called Asea. But I'll tell you how the love story went on. There's a great couple, Ed and Rebecca Weems. And, they talked to somebody that they had a business relationship with previously. And that person's name is Paul Alogus, Paul and Fred. And they talked to Paul, and she refused at first and then said, you know what, I'm just going to get him off my back. I'll use it. And she had amazing health results. She's in a quilting class. Hey, folks, don't you have hobbies? I'm talking to you, Asea people. Okay, you have hobbies? Yeah, you have hobbies. Paul is a quilter. She's in the quilting class. She's enjoying this, right? Well, there's a person next to her who's quilting. They're just talking. And this person has a brain challenge. Now, I'm telling you, I know what it was. It's not just a brain challenge. It was one that kills you and can kill you fast. Well, Paula suggests, hey, you might want to look into this redox signaling molecules. Well, fortunately, this lady did. Her name was Virginia. And Virginia had a lease on life for several more years, that even my alma mater had said, get your will together. You're not going to be here long. Well, this lady, Virginia, that's using this stuff with amazing results, has a daughter. And her daughter, guess what? Knew my daughter in high school. So she reads the social post, and she says, hey, my mom has this brain challenge. It's not the same thing as your kid, but maybe this could work. It's a brain thing. So those molecules made their way to my daughter's pantry, and they stayed there for a little while. I've learned all this later on. They stayed there for a while, and again, they're going through all sorts of contraptions, motions, lotions, potions, everything. Nothing's working. So finally they, hey, wait, maybe we ought to try that blue stuff in the pantry. So they did. And my daughter homeschools those kids, by the way. She's an amazing lady. And when you homeschool them, plus they're your kids, you know those kids well, and you know how they operate. Well, within just a few weeks of ingesting the Redox orally and using the gel, this kid is showing amazing improvements. Okay, so let's fast forward. I didn't know any of that was happening. We're having a birthday party with them. When you have a lot of kids, you got to put 2 or 3 birthdays together when you celebrate. So we were going up there already, and she said, hey, I know you're coming up here. Did you know Gideon's responding? He's and I figured, well, is he trying a medicine or something? That was my mindset. And no, it's something that's incredible, and he's really improving. Would you mind hearing about it? What do you think I'm going to say? Sure, I'd love to hear about it. Well, when I arrived there, I knew Paula and Fred, previously patients. They had moved out of the area. And I said, oh, look, who's here? And I met Ed and Rebecca Weens for the first time. And there was a guy named Dick Walker who they zoomed in because I'm a doc, right? So I'm hearing about redox signaling molecules. I'll be honest with you, Lee, I'm glad you've written these books, but I will tell you, we were joking about how little time we had in various anatomy lessons and nutrition lessons in medical school. My biochemistry textbook had next to nothing about redox. Okay. That's because I'm ancient, Maureen. That's because I'm ancient, right? And all the good stuff is, but
Maureen, did yours have anything on redox?
I know I had never heard that verbiage. And of course, my story is I heard it from a computer salesperson. So I was like, this is sketchy, and then my sister had heard of it. But, for those of you who have a chemistry background, we're actually talking about reductants and oxidants. It's just a contraction of the 2 words to redox. So, had you said that might have made a little more sense to me. If you had brought up the Krebs cycle, I probably would have been like, no more, I'm out of here.
Now,
Yeah.
Lee, had you heard anything about redox prior to your introduction?
No, not really. I knew immediately that it was biochemistry, and it did have something to do with Krebs cycle. That was my background in college, emphasized biochem, and that was like throwing Brer Rabbit in the briar patch. And so I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Sounds like you, Dr. Michael, because you really dug into it as well, right?
Well, here's was my motivation, Jim. I'm sitting there hearing several people, including this double board certified colleague, talk about redox. I'm sitting on this couch. It's one of those soft, cushy things. And I play with the grandkids on it all the time. And I'm sinking very deep because I know what's going to happen. Somebody's going to look at me and say, hey, Pops or Dad, what do you think? And I'm going like, there's a blank here. There's a really blank. But I will tell you that I was faced with a reality. I have my grandson who I know. Traditional medicine did not have an answer. He's getting better. He's using this supplement of which the basis for which I don't know anything. But I went and bought, there's a bunch of textbooks behind me here. And I didn't have Dr. Osler's books, but the others there I bought. And for about 3-4 months, I just settled in, and horrors, Maureen. It felt like I was back in medical school. But I wanted to read about the biochemistry. And please, folks, you don't need to know. I enjoy air flights when they're smooth and they go up and they go down and we're safe and we're on time. And boy, is it wonderful. And you can look into the science of air flight and flow over and under a wing and flaps and all the rest of everything that goes in, hydraulics. You know what? I don't need to know that to enjoy flying. And honestly, I'm glad there are people who do that for a living and understand that. But honestly, if you want to just poke around just a little bit, go to Google Scholar or PubMed. And it's not Google, it's Google Scholar. And just for fun, if you're interested in heart health or lung health or kidney health or just anything, aging, just put in redox biochemistry and use that little conjunction and then you'll pull up thousands of articles. You'll have to filter them because you're just going to get too much to look at. Okay, so the biochemistry is there, the science is there, it's advanced now. There's no question about it working. And now we just have to figure out, hey, you know what? Gee whiz, are there ways that I can improve this? Because these are tiny little molecules that play a life-sustaining role, okay? Life-sustaining, okay? Health maintaining and enhancing, because of what they do. I mean, these little things are so small, they get through cell membranes, they cause a cascade of different processes that go on. And honestly, it enhances what I believe the Lord gave us and what oftentimes either our lifestyle works against us, how we live, how we eat. Believe it or not, our lack of sleep. We're a sleep-deprived society. I think that is one of the biggest things that we can do to help our health. But all of that works against us. And, there's just such a balance that is needed. And, it's just incredible. But bottom line.
Can I ask a question real
I
quick?
want to know. Yeah.
Okay. And I may ask Lee to respond as well, but I want to know your response, Rich. When you first looked at this, did you look at the bottom of the bottle and it says it's a dietary supplement? I mean, just getting down to the basics. And then, because again, I'm not medical, you guys all know it. I'm kind of slow, but the ingredients just say sodium. Don't laugh at me, Maureen. It says sodium chloride in water. Did you struggle with that or not?
No, again,
I mean, you saw the result to Gideon.
Yeah, I saw a result, a very important N of 1, but at that time I quickly immersed into the biochemistry because I heard that phrase mentioned. And so I'm starting to read about the biochemistry and saying, my gosh, look, I've been practicing medicine at this point for 35 years. When you're seeing 25 people a day, you're just trying to stay up with the pharmacology of what I write prescriptions on.
Right.
And stay up with that. I don't have time to look at basic sciences anymore. I mean, I really don't. I mean, just not enough hours in a day. So all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, this big window opens up. And I think this is formative. This is substantial. This is so underlying basic to our cellular health. And honestly, folks, I mean, cells make up everything in the body. I mean, all the organs, you think of all your vital organs, right? We call them the vital organs, right? They're just made up of trillions of cells. And yet, at the very basis of the health of those boogers is this whole redox biochemistry. So, looking at, sodium chloride, that didn't bother me. I thought it was different how they were getting the word out. I thought, somebody's choice to do it through word of mouth marketing. But you know what? Honestly, getting back to the love story, that's where the love came in, because it was one person telling one person, telling one person, telling one person. And, there's a part of my life that is critical, and that's my faith. And you know what? There was a wrestling coach when I went to a wrestling camp that thought enough about me to tell me a story that I needed to hear. So it wasn't in some big auditorium with lots and lots of people. So oftentimes, a love story usually is a very small cadre of people that are involved in a love story. Sometimes just two people, but it's an amazing story. And so the science is there, not a question about that. I think now getting the word out, and how it's made is proprietary. And even though I'm on the medical professionals board, they can't kill me because I don't know I don't know the actual. So don't come after me on that one. I can't tell you, but I can still enjoy it. And the fact that it's certified, has redox molecules, that was a big deal for me. That was a big deal. And at that point, is being done. I think another big deal for me, honestly, was that there were a few studies that the company had gotten independent researchers to look at. And, it is a big deal when you think that ingesting 8 ounces of this a day over 8 weeks can literally wake up some important genetic regulators. And genetic regulators, they make proteins in our body. These are like gateways. I often think about it, and Lee, I'm sorry if this is not quite kosher, but hang with me. I think of remember the old bricks and mortar, the big department store, the big Sears or the big whatever. Okay. Well, I might have just wanted to go to the tools, right? The tools and Sears. Saturday morning was my little camp out, man cave day, and I would go there, look at all the Craftsman tools. But to get into that department, I had to go through the big opening, the big store. You couldn't get in there until they opened it. Right. But then I can make a beeline for that department. Well, we have all sorts of departments in our body, and some are immune cells, and some are fighter cells, and some are recognition, and some are energy, the energy plant and all this kind of stuff. But a key to getting in could be these big genetic pathway points. And when you unlock that, there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens downstream. And again, there's a cascade that happens when these molecules are around. And so to me, that was important, knowing that there was a genetic study that talked about, those areas that it would upregulate and change, literally. Yeah.
Hey, Lee, can you touch on that real quick? How big of a deal was that gene study? The fact that can you dig a little bit deeper? Because I kind of say we have evidence that demands a verdict. You may not want to believe it. It may sound silly, salt water. Oh, Maureen's gone. Salt, oh, hey, she's back. So we are live. We don't do any kind of cutting, but Lee, how big of oh, she's gone again. Good golly.
It's magic.
It's magic. Poof, she comes back. But Lee, how big of a deal was that? The gene study that came out 6 years ago, because I think that's massive. That's huge in my mind.
Right.
Well, I first want to just say to Dr. Rich, he's done a fabulous job at talking about not the mechanics of how airplanes fly, as it were, but describing the overall effect. And I salute that. He has more skill in doing that than I do. I like to get into the nitty-gritty, as everybody knows. The best metaphor I can come up with, and I'll tie this to the gene study, is there's a difference between a thermometer and a thermostat. And a thermometer is really just measuring, the status, the condition, the temperature, whatever you're measuring, whether it's air temperature or a food you're cooking or, the outside environment or whatever. But a thermostat is also a thermometer, but it has a relay switch in it that will respond to whatever the conditions are based on the programming that's input. And in the body, Rich was talking about, the response of the body and the pathway genes and the gateways to all these marvelous abilities that, we are literally hardwired with in our body to keep us alive and going. But the question is, how does a cell know to respond? How does it know it's in trouble? What does it do when it is in trouble? And when does it stop responding after it's fixed the problem? And all of that has to do with these pathway genes. And that, again, that thermostat idea of when we're out of kilter, when we're out of balance, when there's a problem. And largely in the cell, we define that for the most part as the status, the redox status, or the degree of oxidative stress in the cell. And again, that gets kind of sciencey, but the body has a way of sensing or detecting when that balance gets too far away from homeostasis or even balance. And when that happens, it activates pathway genes that are the responsive nature of our own cellular programming that tell the DNA that there's a problem, and they turn on the response pathways that produce a response in this regulatory circuit so that it can fix the problem and rebalance the cell and return it to balance. And in that process, we have this adaptive stress response capability. That's part of the hardwiring. That's the pathway genes that are there. And it is that ability that gives us what we call stress resilience, or the ability to cope with the environment that we live in and all the problems that we go through, from just everyday living to diseases that we might come across, or somebody sneezes in our face and we're exposed to a new condition. Aging, it also brings with it new challenges and higher degrees of stress and strain on our body. And our body is hardwired with the ability to detect, to sense that, and then to respond in an adaptive way, and then to turn off when it's corrected the problem. The challenge that we have is, as we age, that those pathway genes are challenged because we have less signaling capability as we age. That's why we wrinkle and get gray, and we don't run and jump as fast when we're older as like when we were a kid, as we have less of that signaling capability. And this company, Asea, with this electrolyzed saline, if you will, it has the ability to turn on those pathway genes, and that was borne out in the study that Jim was referencing earlier on gene expression, where it upregulated a wide variety of pathway genes that are connected to these stress response pathways that keep us healthy. That's probably all the deeper that we need to go, but that's why this is such a miraculous thing. That's why, I'll make a comment about, did I know redox when I heard it? And it was like, not really. The physician that told me about it just told us to go get some for my wife, and we did. And it was, for her, it was like flipping that switch. It was like we were 48 hours into it, and I could tell a demonstrable change had occurred in her life and has blessed her ever since. And then that's when I took a deep dive, because I had to figure out, holy moly, what just happened? I did what Dr. Rich did. I went out and got the books and got online and tried to figure out why this made sense. And I'll say that there's not many health professionals that know this. He talked about the mouth and the body. I'm actually a past president of the American Academy for Oral Systemic Health. I've sat on the board. I've program chaired their scientific sessions. And when I heard about redox for the first time and I saw what it did, I was thinking, like, I've been in the middle of this. Why hadn't I heard about this yet? It's like, why am I felt like I was late coming to the party. And, come to find out that that's really the condition of most health professionals, that this is something that's very new. So I would personally invite anybody watching, listening, take what Dr. Rich has said to heart and do your due diligence. You don't have to know how electrons move in a cell to figure this out. Just, at least get the high level, but come be a part of this and help other people too. That's the love story. I like that.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So I had a question. So Rich, you get the book Redox to Life. You see what it did for your grandson. Then you had to have thought, oh my gosh, I know all these people. I know people who need it. How did you segue from you're an MD, you're busy, your grandfather, time's limited, and then now you're thinking of it for the business. Now you can earn some side income, maybe get some free product. Maybe you can share how you incorporated it to also do the network marketing side.
Sure. Well, in terms of, just all of a sudden now my eyes are opened and I'm a lot more receptive to the utility of non-pharmacologic agents, okay? And how we can take those supplements, basically, and either singly through lifestyle alterations, and that's very important, okay? And sometimes we'll mix them. We'll take them because sometimes using the supplements allows us to use less pharmacology. Lower doses usually means less side effects. It gives the patient themselves more autonomy. That is very, very important. They like a guide, but let me step up the mountain myself, but just guide me. Don't let me go down the wrong path. If there are multiple ways to get to the top of the mountain, sure, show me those, but don't let me go down the one that falls off the mountain, okay? But just let me take those steps and maybe help me along the way. I'll feel really good about climbing that mountain. So, it seemed pretty natural to do that. What I do in my profession, I just have to give a disclosure statement to my patients and just say, hey, you know what? I'm on the medical professionals board of this company. You don't have to use these products at all. I am still your physician. And oh, by the way, I could get some financial benefit to this, just to let you know. Because folks, when you go in and have your colonoscopies or your other procedures, chances are the physician may have some incentive where that's being done. And it's in those 20 pages of things that you sign, okay? It's in there. There's a disclosure statement. So I just am very careful to do that, be quite upfront with the patient. But I'll give you an example. We've talked about Redox tonight because that was the centerpiece for my grandson. That is what got me going. And that is what Dr. Osler, Dr. Hayes have talked about. But I'll tell you, this company is an incredible. If you're looking to join forces with somebody that wants to be a force for good in this world, this company is, you need to look at this company, because I'm telling you, they're not just resting on those laurels. There is no other company that I know of in the world currently that has stabilized redox molecules like we've talked about tonight. There's no other company in the world. Now, there are tons of organizations, research firms, medical schools. Everybody is sinking multi millions of dollars into this biochemistry that up until a few years ago, we never learned about, right? Well, they're sinking multi-millions into that. Well, Asea is not resting on their laurels of being the only company in the world that has these stabilized molecules. They're taking the process further and the science further. They've come out with, it's absolutely incredible, a line called Cell Performance. And right now they have mind, energy, and mood. And I was joking with somebody today. I said, the first two sounds like I know what that is. Now, mood, does that put you in the mood for something? No, this is a love story, but we'll keep it this way. Mood could be very good for folks who have a challenge with sleep, or I can't turn my engine off enough to get a good rest. or I get so frustrated with people nowadays and with life. And I want to bite the head off of the next marketer that calls me, that type of thing. Mood is incredible. It has unbelievable far-ranging effects. So folks, the great thing is you do not have to be a doctor. This is not pharmacology. You don't have to have a prescription authorization, right? This is not a prescription. Otherwise, there would be no point in most of the people on this call listening, right? No, you can bless other people because it is not a prescription. You don't have to worry about drug-drug interactions. There's not a toxicity here. It brings us into this balance that Dr. Osler's talked about, okay? So, it's amazing. So it's very natural. I would say for everybody on the call, listen to people. Just listen to people. People will tell you naturally about things that are tough in their life, things that they struggle with, things that they are struggling with now. A little struggle is okay. It helps our bodies to adapt and to change, and we can grow in many ways. But when it becomes overwhelming, people will tell you. And if you have an ear and know a little bit about the products, not the science, but what they can do. I mean, if a product has an over 80% chance of being effective, you will look very good. If you're a weather forecaster and you have an 80% prediction rate, you're going to be on the Weather Channel premiere, right? Okay.
Right.
So,
hey, I want to address something, and I want all of you, maybe Maureen, even you in the beginning. We got 12 minutes. We typically go long anyway. But here's my biggest concern, guys. We have a gift, and there are going to be some people that go, well, Maureen, yeah, I just don't know if it's going to work on me. Or, hey, I didn't feel it in the first 10 minutes, so it's probably not going to work on me. Can you all please address, Lee, I know you love this one too, but do the molecules always work? Because, Rich, your grandson seems like a quick response. Lee, your wife had a quick response. I had a quick response. Maureen, I'm not sure. I don't think you did, but can you please speak to the people out there that are going, yeah, but either that or I don't need it, hey, I'm great. I'm fine, even though we have, Olympians using the product. But can you guys please talk to that and share to people why they need this and why they need to stay on it for the rest of their life? It's not to get better, and quit stuff. Can y'all please address that in the last whatever time we have left? Maureen?
Sure. Well, what I think I was pretty blessed. It was backwards for me. Both Dr. Rich and Dr. Lee have talked about having somebody have a product experience and then they got interested in it. My husband was very ill, and a friend who was in computer sales brought this to my attention. It sounded stupid to me. The saving grace is that my sister, who was a medical editor at the medical school where I went to school at Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston, they had just gotten a $10.5 million NIH grant to study redox signaling in the body for cardiovascular disease, neurodegenerative, orthopedics, aging, obesity, diabetes, cancer, you name it. And I was like, and so, we all have egos as doctors. We do a lot of studying. And for me to be sitting there, and a computer guy knew about it, my sister, the medical editor, knew about it, and I had never even heard the verbiage, I had to do that deep dive too, because I wanted to know what I was missing out on. And the more I read about the science, the more exciting it became to me. Now, we didn't have some of the stuff that Dr. Rich was talking about with the certification on the back of the bottle. It was a little bit more of a leap of faith and very little science back then, very few studies. The studies that we did have were done on athletes who are scientists of their own bodies, if you will. So, we got on the product, and it was 6 weeks. We were just taking the serving that is recommended on the back of the bottle. Now, that is because of regulatory processes that are throughout the world. They put 2 ounces on there twice a day, not because that's the therapeutic amount, but that's what they have to put to meet all of these regulatory criteria for the 33 different markets that we're in across the world. The study that both Dr. Lee and Dr. Rich have talked about, it was healthy 35-year-olds, but they took 8 ounces a day, and 100% of them, whether they felt it or not, and that's not even something that they talked about in the study. We don't know if they felt it, but we do know that 20 to 31% of them had an upregulation of these different gene pathways that turned on processes in the body. And when they went off of it 8 weeks later, those all went back to baseline. 100%.
They all had an upregulation of 20 to 31%, correct? Did I hear that correct? Okay.
100% of the participants.
Okay.
The people who were on the placebo or the control were taking the saline solution that our product is made from. So there was a control having nothing. There was a placebo, which was the saline, and then there were the people taking the actual product, the redox signaling product. So, the science is good. That's what we call, placebo control crossover studies, so that people didn't know what they were taking. So you couldn't have that placebo effect that people talk about. So very amazing. And so, what, if you like the effects of it, you want to stay on the product. You don't always feel it. But like Dr. Rich was talking before, when you take these products, they're tiny molecules. And because they're tiny, they're easily absorbed through the cell membrane. When they get inside of the cell, they flip on switches that cause a cell signaling. And so they signal the cells that are right adjacent to them, who then spread that message that spreads and spreads and spreads. It's like a telephone phone tree where it's going out. It causes a cascading or a domino effect. And when this happens, what that leads to is overall wellness and resiliency to stress. Now, you're not always going to feel that. And Dr. Lee does a beautiful job of explaining what he calls hormesis, or what's called hormesis, which is stressing the body. So we're never going to be out of stress. This whole idea of being perfectly in homeostasis or balance is a myth. You're always being pushed off of balance. What we're doing is increasing your ability to come back to center. You get pushed off, you come back to center. Pushed off, come back to center. And that's what the beauty of amplifying these signals is that it increases that resiliency. Are you always going to feel it? No, but for a lot of people, they do. But whether you feel it or not, I always say audience participation is not necessary here. It works because it cannot not work.
Right.
Lee, what do you say to that?
Well, the whole idea of feel it, quote unquote, is a drug paradigm.
Yeah.
It's I take an aspirin and my headache goes away in 30 minutes or something. It's a lock and key receptor site biological thing going on. And this is a different aspect of biological redox biology that we're talking about. I love Dr. Marine's explanation there with regards to the cascading effect and the return to, it's not staying at, and that is a big myth across all platforms, is they think that by taking enough supplements or exercising well enough or whatever, that they can always be in balance. And that is not how we're wired. That's not how we were designed. We were designed to be able to respond to adversity, because that's the world that we live in. That's the very nature of oxygen. That's a very adverse molecule that creates oxidation on purpose, because that's how we make energy. And if it weren't for that, we wouldn't make energy. And so I just think people have to realize this is not about how you feel, yet that's this paradigm that it's kind of a cultural doctrine in healthcare that this is going to take away your symptoms. The fact that you do feel better after you do it, probably 9 out of 10 people, I'm going to say, is evidence that the downstream effects of cells not working for the last 5 to 10 years, it is very much been happening. That's our evidence that you aren't well, is the fact that you feel differently. But the fact that you don't feel something doesn't mean that it's not working at the cellular or even subcellular level.
So,
That's it.
Dr. Michael, there are people, like me, prior, I was in a lot of discomfort from my 10, lower back surgeries. And being on 500 pills and one of the medications for 25 years. There's a lot of people that are suffering. Can you speak to them why they should give this a shot?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody needs hope. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of people that are giving up hope. They've had enough.
Right. Well, and honestly, as I explained earlier, that's where Gideon's parents were. My daughter and his daddy, they had lost financial hope because it was draining them. Their emotional bank was depleted because of seeing their son go through what he was going through. So literally, I've heard it referred to as hope in a bottle. And, I personally like the pouches, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is
Very
8 ounces, by the way. This is 8 ounces. And if there's evidence there, I try to follow the evidence. So I'm upregulating my genetic genome. But anyway, yeah, folks, medicine, as great as the profession is, we have our limitations. We are not those of us that are allopathic. MD does not stand for mighty deity, although some act like that. We are frail. We are not all knowing. It's wonderful in that the science is expanding. That's how we found out about this. Hey, here's one to catch. Talk about hormesis. Sleep, 7 to 9 hours is optimal. That means, if you get less than 7, you're not clearing 2 very important proteins out of your brain. Now, we don't know it's a cause of, and I'll mention Alzheimer's, right? Something that as you get older, you start to think about things like that. There are 2 proteins that are elevated in brains, people that have Alzheimer's. And we have found out, again, in the last 10 to 15 years, there's a whole system in the brain that actually clears toxins out, including these 2 proteins. But guess what? You have to achieve a certain amount of sleep for that to actually happen. And it's happening in that magic little window. And if you get too much sleep, it's like too much exercise. It's like too much of too many things. That becomes a problem as well. So we get this magic Goldilocks zone or Goldilocks effect where that's very important. But for those that have struggled and you've gotten to the end of your rope, and most of you are probably on the traditional side where I've practiced almost my whole career. And when we have nothing left to offer in terms of pharmacology, because we aren't trained in these areas, because we are not aware of the science in these areas, and especially the area of redox biochemistry, your loving, well-intentioned medical team is going to have a 0 there, a null effect, because they're not going to know about it. And somebody has brought this to your attention, and you need, as has been said by my colleagues tonight, you absolutely have to look at this, get back with the person who's encouraging you in this area. Please. I mean, you have so little to lose, honestly. They don't give it away for free, okay? Maybe you can con a person into a few free samples. But the bottom line is, seriously look at this. The reports about these quick recoveries, the aha moment, like, I feel it, and so forth. The danger in that is certainly, as has been elucidated already by Dr. Osler, but at 1 week, it's only about 15% of people. At 1 month, it's about 50% of people. If you throw away something that could literally change your life, because after 4 weeks, I don't feel it's like it's working. At 2 months, roughly the aha is 75%, and at 3 months, it's 90%. That's with the redox. Can you imagine where we would be today if Orville and Wilbur Wright said, you know what, our first cracks at this didn't work. Let's just toss it in. We're making good bicycles though, man. Everybody wants to buy our bicycles. So we're going to just stay in the bicycle shop and leave this stupidity to somebody over in Europe or something, right? No, they didn't. They didn't give up. And please don't give up. Please use the product liberally, in an educated way. Hold it in your mouth. Use it to improve your oral gum hygiene. They're absorbed like crazy, ridiculous through here. Just do that. Use the topical products. Hang in there, and just expect that this biochemistry, you know, as wonderful as you are, you're no different than the rest of us. We're biochemically very similar. Responses are a little different for sure. Okay. Some people have that quick, some people don't. When I have answered prayer and it just takes me 2 years and somebody else had answered prayer in 1 week, I don't look at that as like I was deficient. I mean, I got my answer, you know, that's a blessing. So I would just encourage everybody on this call, do not be discouraged. You know, Providence has allowed this company to exist at this point in time. I don't know how they stabilized them. Most researchers, I mean, nobody else has done it. And everybody's after it now, but nobody else has done it. Providentially, this company has it, and look at it. And those that want to become aligned with this company in even a different format, you have an open window there. And it's been life-changing. It's given my grandson his life back, that family their life back. And it's blessed many, many, many tens of thousands, millions of people. And you owe it to yourself to look at this.
That's right.
Real quick, Maureen, can you in 1 minute, because we've gone a little bit over, but speak to the people that go, I'm healthy and I don't need it. Please, real quick.
You know what? You never know what's brewing underneath the surface. And I hope every single one of you and all of the people that you love and care about are as healthy as can be. But we're fighting things every day, from toxins in our environment to fake food to electromagnetic fields, all sorts of things that no matter how clean living you are, you're coming up against these. And everybody is healthy until they get that diagnosis that sort of throws them off. And so what I would say is prevention is key. Keeping your body optimized is key. Giving your body what it needs to fight the good fight is worth its weight in gold. And I wanted to just give the disclaimer one more time. This sounds miraculous. It's not. It's physiology. It's just that this is new information for us. It's only about 20 years old, which means that it just hasn't gotten mainstream yet. So, you know, get back to the person who invited you to this, learn about it, get on the product, give it a try for yourself, give it enough time. You don't get sick overnight. You're not going to get back to optimal health overnight. And I like to tell my followers and all, if you're on the sofa with a Big Mac in one hand and a clicker in the other, you need these molecules just to stay alive. If you can do all the other good things that Dr. Lee teaches about and Dr. Rich teaches about, then you're going to get much more benefit from these molecules. And like Dr. Rich said, they're not giving them away for free. It's an investment into your health. So invest into your health and into the health of the people that you love and care about, and make a difference for these people. We all need it because there's no way to escape this toxic world. So anyway, it's a little bit late.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys. Next week we will be back. We're not quite sure how. We have a big meeting up in Waco, Texas. Maureen and I will be there. We're not sure if we're going to be doing a testimonial evening there. There's so much activity going on in Waco. We're not sure if we actually will have the space. If we don't have the space, Dr. Osler, he'll be the host. And so one way or another, we will be back. Yeah, we'll either Lee will have something lined up. We'll do something good there. And but guys, get back, like Maureen said, get back to the one. This is an actual. Rich, I agree. It's a divine miracle that we have this. And that's why I don't think anybody else has it. And I don't think anybody else ever will. So guys, thank you so much. We love and adore you. Talk soon. The video will be up. The recording will be up on Redox Matters within about an hour. So thank you guys very much. Rich,
Everyone, thanks, Rich.
thank you.
You're awesome
Thanks
as
so
always.
much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye,
God bless.
Feel better.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody. See you in a couple
Thanks.
weeks.
Bye.
Maybe
Yes,
next.
next week.